Welcome to Out from the Cube. We're actually labeling, I think we're going to try to label these. This is going to be our Why Wednesday with Jayson, with the Y, Jayson Wells. Don't forget the Y or remember
it's all about the why. It's all about the why.
All about the why, which I love. And I remember when we met, that was your message, and you had said that before or in some of our conversations. And the more I get into this, personal development, personal improvement, coaching, things about that, and how successful people think and how business leaders and entrepreneurs think, it really is about the why, right? And it really, really is. Actually, now I'm sidetracked and we're 30 seconds in. I was listening to Evjen Carmichael this morning, and one of the main points he said, it was something about playing outside the rules and getting outside your comfort zone and essentially getting out of your cube. Number one, remind yourself daily of the mission that you are on. That's the first thing that he kind of does every day, that he said that gets him out of bed no matter what the time is and all that. And it's all about the why. It's all about your why. Yeah. Let me tell a story real quick before we get into your weekend, this past weekend, because when I was doing my morning routine and my morning habits and listening to some things, Simon Sinek, who I actually don't listen to a lot of and wish I did. I really like his demeanor, his language, his tone, his message, how articulate he is. I really like that guy. But he was telling a story, and I'm not going to get it right, and I'm going to really condense it down, that they finished running a race. And at the end of this race, a 5K or a 13K or a mile, whatever it was, at the end of these races, and I've done a few of them, there's always bananas and bagels and all this. So he's sitting with his buddy that he ran the race with, and Simon says, hey, let's go get a free bagel. And his buddy says, no, that line is too long. I don't want to wait in that line. And Simon repeats it, no, I want a free bagel. And his buddy says, no, that line is just too long. I'm not willing to wait for it. And I think it goes back and forth, back and forth. This is essentially what he says, though, at the end. Some people see the thing they want, which is Simon saying, I want a free bagel. I don't care what it takes to get that free bagel. I see the bagel. I see the outcome. I see me eating that bagel and being satisfied. His buddy, and this is the other part of the phrase, some people see the thing that prevents them from getting the thing they want. So his buddy sees the line and sees the wait and sees, that it's going to take me such amount of time to get what I want, and I'm not willing to invest that time, resources, money, energy, thought into getting that bagel. I just see the problem. Yeah. Right. And I could go all down certain roads with that. That hit me today, early this morning, and it had me thinking of you, and it is my segue into your weekend, because I'm really interested on your weekend. You posted something on Instagram that immediately was at the top of my feed. I was super excited for you. There was a back and forth between the two of us. There are some people that see what they want and they go for it, and they're ready to receive it and all this sort of stuff. And there's some people that see all the problems. So my segue is, you spent some time this weekend at a conference, workshop, lecture, talk, whatever it is, with Evjen Carmichael. And at some point, this is how I took this. At some point, you recorded a video with Evjen Carmichael, and how when I immediately saw that video, the first word that popped into my mind was action, right? Yeah. It was Jayson saying, hey, I want to meet him, be with him, talk with him, record with him, get a message from him, and have him be a part of me and what I'm doing and all that sort of stuff. And Jayson said, I want the bagel. I don't care what the line is. I don't care if I have to wait. I don't care if there's an embarrassment. I don't care if he says no. I don't care what he does. I want the bagel. And the bagel for you was sitting down with Evjen Carmichael, and it happened. It was the first thing that popped into my head when I heard Simon Sinek this morning, and when I saw your video of Evjen Carmichael, and I have been waiting 3 or 4 days to hear about you. So that's my lead up. That's my lead up to it, and that's my lead up to it. And take it away. Tell me about your weekend.
Yeah, man. Like, first off, like, even with that story, even with the tail end of that Simon Sinek story, the part that really hit me was he said, he reached into line and he reached through people. He did not get into line. He reached through people. When he said, when you're going for that, you sacrifice choice. I wanted a strawberry bagel. I wanted a blueberry bagel. Yeah, you sacrifice choice when you're doing that. But reaching through the line. But then the thing that really hit me was he said, people don't care about you getting what you want as long as it doesn't hinder them from getting what they want.
Right,
So
right.
people didn't care about him cutting in line.
Right.
They didn't, they didn't even care about it, but he did lose. He did sacrifice his, I'm choosing which bagel I get. So yeah, Simon's unbelievable. He is the guy that actually got me started on my path to purpose. When I listen to that, it Start With the Why podcast or TED Talk that it might be like the most watched. If it's not, it's for sure top 3 watched TED Talks ever. That was the one. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my condo in Atlanta cleaning, literally cleaning, and it came on randomly. I didn't know who he was. I didn't search. It was, how the videos will auto play and it'll play based on things that you've watched, and it just populated. And I remember stopping and saying, this piqued my interest. And literally for the next 6 to 8 months, just dove into Simon Sinek and his teachings and his word. I watched podcasts. I listened to videos, YouTube, everything. Like dove into him and what he believed, and he is the catalyst to where I am on January 30th, 2019. But anyway.
Hey, on that, I'm not going to jump in and hijack where we're headed, but I want to come back to exactly what you said. So I wrote it down. There's something in there that I need to hear for myself.
Okay.
And your response to it after we
get yeah, man, this weekend was unbelievable. You and I talked briefly about it, but Evjen Carmichael, who is a guy that we both watch, I really like his content because the way that he delivers it, he gives you nuggets, which are easy to digest. And I feel like he gives you a variety of people. Some are well-known, some are less well-known, but they are all very influential, like the Dan Locke guy. Yep. I didn't know who he was until I started watching him.
Yep.
Or watching Evjen. Jordan Peterson, same deal. I didn't know who Jordan Peterson was until I started watching Evjen Carmichael. So he introduces me to people that I don't necessarily know. But anyway, Evjen's been promoting this 50 city tour that he was doing, not releasing a book. He's just doing this 50 city tour. And I saw that he was coming to St. Louis, and everything about who I was previous to, I don't know, 2018 when I decided to jump, or when I jumped out of a plane on my birthday. Mm-hmm. Everything that who I was, that represented who I was previous to that, would have said, oh, he's coming to town. Cool. Mm-hmm. Knowing that this is somebody that I engage with through digital platform literally every day, and here's the opportunity to connect with him in person, I would have just overlooked it. But jump. Mm-hmm. Jump. And I can tell you even a story about that if you want to get into it. But jump. And so when I saw he was coming, because it would have been an excuse. Oh, I don't have the money for that, or I don't want to set aside the money for that, or whatever excuse that it could possibly be. And as soon as I saw it, that he was coming on January 26th, I immediately purchased a ticket.
That's perfect.
Didn't know the venue. Didn't know the setup, didn't know who was going to go with me, didn't know any of that. I just said, I'm going to get a ticket. And it ended up, Marky went with me, and she hadn't heard of him. Like, I don't know how, because I've watched videos with her, but she's in her own zone when I'm in my zone. So she wasn't aware of who he was, and she walked out of there with the wow factor. Like she was totally impacted by it. And I like, man, that was for me, for her to walk out from that feeling how she felt was like the ultimate service, because not only did we walk in this same pattern and kind of bring her into my world, but she was impacted and influenced by it. So it was even better because it served her coming out of it. So yeah, I just acted, and we went to go see him. Probably 30 to 40 people in a conference room at the Pear Tree Inn. You're not talking about, this was not some 4 or 5-star hotel. We're at the Pear Tree Inn in Union Station in St. Louis, 40 to 50 people in a room, and literally Evjen standing there for 3 hours. And man, that's not what led to it is what led to what you saw, but that event is not what you saw. So from that event, he actually picked 3 people to follow up and have what he referred to as a 3-on-1 Sunday morning for breakfast brunch.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you saw. So what you
Okay.
saw was literally me and 3 other people. Well, it was 4 other people because one of the people that he picked was a couple. And we started off at a coffee shop down in the city. The coffee shop kicked us out, and we went. What you saw was me recording in a Jimmy John's.
Nah. That's perfect.
Unreal, bro. Unreal. Yeah. So whatever you want to go from there, but that's the foundation of it.
That's perfect. So I guess, how did he choose you? Was it just like him saying like, hey, you, or was it a raffle? Was it?
Yep. So what he chose were the 3 people were the people who drove from the furthest, who came the furthest,
mm-hmm.
and a random.
Okay.
And
were you the random?
No, I was not the random. I was one of the people that came from the furthest because I told him I came from Atlanta. My license and license plate still say Georgia, so I was not telling the truth.
That's great.
Hey, bro, it's the bagel.
You were reaching. I was about to say you're reaching through the line, grabbing your bagel.
Yeah.
Using your resources. Hey, my license plate say Georgia. My that's perfect.
If he would have asked for any proof, I would have been able to prove it. So
perfect. Yeah, what you want. Hey, there's something else I want to bring up. I'll punt on that for right now. What was his theme? Let me ask this: how long did he speak for?
3 hours.
3 hours. And did he have one big theme that he was trying to hit on, or was it a hodgepodge of question answer? Or
3 take-home points, and again, something that I really, really learned out of that was it wasn't a keynote where we were just sitting there listening to him speak for 3 hours.
Right.
But it wasn't a facilitation where he was sitting there asking us questions and curating the information in the audience either, which is the other kind of route that I'm going down now. It was really a hybrid of both. He talked. He had his 3 talking points. Mm-hmm. And at the end of each talking point, he had like an action item for us to do. Hey, write down this, think about this, let's discuss this. But everything else was a little bit of him talking. It was really dialogue. And what that did for me, because that's what I've always referred to what I do, is it's dialogue. Even as I'm developing this content, I want the energy from the room to dictate the content, which is why I'm struggling with content or calling it content instead of curriculum. Mm-hmm. So, I don't want to say I need to get through A, B, C, and D, when staying on B and going down a deeper road of B is what's going to best serve the audience. So if I don't get to the quote unquote curriculum, but I've gone to places that's going to best serve the audience, then I'm okay. And that's exactly what he did. Yeah. But he still got to his 3 points. His 3 points were take action.
Okay, slow down here because I am taking notes. Everybody listening, we're not going to have big radio silence, but the first one is take action. Okay,
take action. And it's now. Immediate action, immediate momentum, now, right now. And I'll tell you some stories as we break these down individually. The second one is when you feel that fear, that anxiety that most people feel when it's time to take action, go harder, dive more into it. When you feel that hesitation, it's really time to do it now.
Okay.
And then the third one was schedule time for greatness. Like, you got to schedule it. You have to say, this is what I'm doing at this time. This is how I'm going to do it. This is, it's that George Evjen question of how do you find ways to consistently tap into the things that inspire you? Like, schedule it. That's how you do it. That's why. And it's funny too.
You got your blocks, right? So when you said that, I immediately thought of your blocks.
Yes.
Your 2 blocks per day or 3 blocks per day.
Yeah, 3.
Which I'm trying to implement as well, actually.
Don't try.
Is that what you do?
Go into Yoda mode. Don't try. Just do.
Perfect. Is that what you thought of when he said that? Did you say, "Hey, I'm doing that," or?
Yeah, and the cool part about it is, like, he really made reference to a morning routine, And the thing, this was something that I wrote in my personal notes. He's like, even if you're doing this, even if you have a morning routine, you can, the word that he used was good too. He said, you can always make it more powerful. You can and so it's my word when I choose to use the word enhance over transform or change. It's wherever you are, you can always get better. And that's exactly what he said. Even if you have a morning routine and you have something that you consistently do, you can always pour into it and make it more powerful. So, whether it's the consistency or whether it's the depth or whatever it is, you can always make it more powerful. And so we spoke about, I'm looking to my right because that's where it is. I changed the name to my morning routine again.
Yeah, again, here we go.
This is the one, though. This is the one. I feel like this is the one because everything else was me reaching off of something that hit me but didn't really, I liked it, but it's now called prime time.
Okay.
That is my morning routine is called prime time, and prime time is a double meaning of prime, literally. I remember being a little kid and watching those cars drive around with the gray prime on them before they got painted. You're riding around with the primer. So it's that base coat. Base coat. It's the start. And then also prime as in premium. Like I grew up watching Deion Sanders and I follow him and his whole thing was prime time. And so, prime time because I do it in the beginning of the day, and prime time because it's my premium time for me to tap into those things that inspired me. So that's what I'm rolling with. If I change it again, I need you to knock me over the head.
That's cool. Listen, you keep enhancing it. You're not changing. You keep enhancing it.
Yeah.
You keep enhancing. So take action now. When you feel fear, go harder and schedule time for greatness. So, there's a fair amount there to unpack or things I want to think about. The people that are sitting in cubicles or that are fearful or won't take the leap or the jump, that are stuck in their cube and all this sort of stuff. I just think there's a story in my mind as you were kind of telling about your weekend that hit me. When I used to run, I'm not a great runner. It's not anything I do. When I moved to St. Louis 11 years ago, my dad was in the midst of training for marathons. And I think at that point had run about 20 or so marathons. And then his goal was to run in the Boston Marathon. So he ran in the Boston Marathon at maybe 58 years old or something like that. And then reached his goal and then stopped. That's all he wanted to do. So he hasn't run since then. But as I wanted to do something to connect with my dad when I moved to St. Louis, so I got into running. And so we were going to do some half marathons together. But as I started running, people said the first thing you have to do is you have to sign up. Go sign up for something, a race, a 3K, a 5K, a 10K, whatever it is. Go sign up for something. That way it's scheduled, it's planned, you're invested with money, all that sort of stuff. And then when you run, you think about that. And then right when that race is over, find the next race to sign up for, to keep momentum and keep going and all that. And I mean, what's that have to kind of, that's what I was thinking about as you were kind of talking, is just taking action. Evjen Carmichael's coming to town. Cool. That's cool. I listen to him and he's great and I get some thing at it. But you took this action of, that's great. I do listen to him and I'm going to go buy a ticket. I don't know who I'm taking. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how many people are going to be there. I don't even actually know where it's at, but I know I need to go to this place, sign up, buy a ticket. Now I'm committed. Yeah. Right. And that hit me as you told that story, because I think there's something about wanting more responsibility, wanting a better life, wanting to enhance a skill, doing whatever, but not knowing how to create that momentum, right? Not knowing how to do that. And I'm still struggling with that. Like I'm very unapologetic in some of these podcasts where I'm sitting around saying our company, Polaris Solutions, our company where I work, I think we should be the premier software consulting company in St. Louis. I think AB and Enterprise and any big company, Purina, whomever in St. Louis, when they think of software consulting, software needs, or whatever, software development, they should think of us, right? And I'm thinking like, yeah, man, those are big goals. But in order to start doing that, we've got to figure out how to create momentum and have that first thing. And I struggle with that. Like, how can we do that? How can we do that? And I know that's a big side tangent, but anybody that's listening, man, I think, like, Jayson, I want you to talk about not just you and this weekend and all that, but maybe what you've seen in the sports world or the business world or the people you talk with about that first step of creating momentum and maybe it's not momentum. Maybe it's,
no, that's what it is.
Is it momentum, or is it saying, hey, I'm committed to this and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm committed to it. And now I'm all in, or I just blew $50 to go see Evan Carmichael. Right.
Yeah. So when I spoke with Leslie, my business partner, the person who have the opportunity to sit under and learn from in this speaking and facilitating world that I'm in now, I often make reference to not necessarily. Oh, what I told her was, I said, Evan ignited my ignite. So ignite is my word. Ignite is my word that I'm going down. That is the one word focus of my content delivery is ignite. And the reason I chose that is because I feel like everyone has this greatness in them already. You have it in you. I was talking to my accountability partner, my friend Paul Ware, in Ohio. And as I was talking to him, literally as I'm saying it to him, I've never had this vision before. I was like, it's like a water heater and a pilot light. Like, the pilot light is there, but the pilot light doesn't do anything by itself until it's ignited. And then it produces the hot water. Then it kicks on. But the pilot light by itself is not strong enough to heat the water. That is what we have. We all have this pilot light inside of us. And I am the long stem igniter that's going to come along and ignite. And I said, Evan ignited my ignition. So whether you want to go iron sharpens iron or whatever, it's he ignited my ignition. And so a lot of what he said wasn't new.
Right.
And that's a lot of what, like, when you watch Ed and you know, Dan and Tom and all these guys that we watch, very little of what they're saying is like groundbreaking, earth-shattering information. It's stuff that you already know. Hence the title of the book, The Things We Know and Do Not Do. But here's what he said, going back to momentum. He said, make the goal, and I know you're a notorious note taker, so I can make the goal, take action, and I wrote take action in all capital letters. Make the goal, take action, not plan. Don't plan. That's where people go wrong, is they start planning. And he said that creates immediate momentum. And the quote that he said was, forced action creates momentum. That was a quote. That was an Evan Carmichael quote. Forced action creates momentum. And he said, he made reference to, and I really like this, and this was the first time that I heard this. He said, just get to the 2%. Don't worry about the other 98. Don't worry about the 100. Just get to the first 2%. The faster you can go from idea to action in the first 2%, the better off you'll be. So his personal story on why he decided to go on this 50 city tour. He does not like traveling, but his wife does. So he told himself that he was going to take her to every city in the States that had over 1 million people. How did he do that? Not by creating this tour. The first thing he did was that coming weekend, this was a few months ago, that weekend, he drove to the closest city. They live in Toronto, as you know. He drove to the closest city that had 1 million people. He took his wife. That was his action. That was his immediate action. Didn't know where they were going to stay. Didn't know, what it was looking like. And they ended up driving to Boston, but apparently the closest city is Pittsburgh. So, but he was like, that's what it is. He's like, do you make the quote unquote wrong move? Yep, maybe you did, because I could have saved a couple hours by not going to Boston, but going to Pittsburgh. But it wasn't about the planning of the trip. It was about taking action to do it. And from that, it turned into this 50 city tour to where his wife gets to do what she wants to do, which is travel and see all these places, and he gets to mix business with pleasure. And his wife's a foodie, his wife's a traveling person. He's not. But he gets to get in his world by engaging in these conferences, and she gets to get in her world by, when he's not in these conferences, taking him to all of these restaurants and places that she wants to go to. Take action.
Taking action.
Yeah.
Then that is my word for the year. And really taking action, immediate. I like this. I like the forced action creates momentum, because that's exactly what I was thinking and going to say. Just any sort of action to create momentum. I'll tell you this, and this may be really stupid and a bad analogy, but my life has changed a little bit in the past 3 or 4 weeks. I have a character flaw that I struggle with mightily, and it is procrastination. And it is not so much procrastination in work things. I get work things done. I get up, I get my morning rituals done. There are things there. The procrastination really centers around the cleanliness of my house.
Okay.
And I think you and I had talked we had talked offline, or maybe it was online, about that you are a neat freak, clean freak. And it was about how you grew up and maybe the example of your dad or something along those lines. I don't know the exact story. My house is not that clean. I am a single dad with 2 boys, and I like to think hard during the day. And then once it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, I run my boys to gyms, and we get home around 9 o'clock, and I'm spent and I'm done. And I get up early and I spend my mornings with Evjen Carmichael and Ed Milet. So what I gave you is a whole bunch of excuses and why my house isn't clean. So This is what I did. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I said, every time I enter a room or leave a room in my house, I've got to pick up or clean down at least 2 things. And I've done that now religiously for about 3 weeks. Magically, my house is getting but it's a small thing. I'm just creating a little action, a little momentum. Now what I find when I do it on weekends, and it's a Saturday and I'm sitting in the living room and I'm going to go get a glass of water, and before I leave the living room, I pick 2 things up. 2 things becomes 5. 5 becomes the vacuum. Then all of a sudden I've got a rag in my hand and some pledge, and I'm wiping down the wood. Like all of a sudden I'm like, man, I just spent 30 minutes cleaning this room up. You're right. And then I feel good about myself. Now my house looks better, and I feel like I'm accomplishing things and knocking some things out that don't take a whole lot of time. Now I know that is kind of a weird story and analogy to it, but small chunks, then that's how software is built. Software is built in small chunks to create momentum, and that's how startups start building software. Hey, let's figure out the MVP. Let's figure out the small chunk. How can we deliver software to our customers as small as possible to get feedback and create momentum and feel like we're doing something, instead of 6, 8 months, or 12 months of software. Anyway, I know but I'm really into this action and momentum and feedback and feeling and just that the feeling that you're getting something done. I feel good that my house is put together.
Of course you do.
I feel good that my house is a little cleaner. I feel good that my children have a house and I'm setting an example for them. Like you said earlier, and I could get this story wrong, and I already said it, but your house is put together, correct? Like
sure.
And it's put together maybe because the example of your dad or things growing up, whatever, right?
Yep.
That example is important to me. Let me say that. Go ahead.
Here's what you're saying, though, George. This is why, and my action, like Evjen was so serious about this, to where, like, even if you remember my video, what you're seeing is me taking action. So, like, in the conference, there was this one lady, and she was talking about how she didn't understand the digital platforms, how she, didn't know how to really work her phone, blah, 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 like all these things. And she's like, she wants to record videos and all of this stuff. He's like, cool, do it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, okay, yep, I'm going to do it. No, I'm going to do it tomorrow. No, do it. Take out your phone in front of all of us and do it right now. And he literally and so, like, there was this young man that she was with, I think it was like her nephew or somebody. He came over and, like, touched their phone and did whatever. And like the 40 of us that are in the room, and this lady starts recording, this is such and such, such and such, and I'm recording this, la, la, la. Turns out whatever the young man did, he didn't put it on a video, he put it on live.
Perfect.
and it was right there, right now. And so, and even when you just talked about, you taking the two things out of your room, my action as far as recording, I told you I had the microphone and now I have my tripod. My action is going to be recording what I'm going to call my one-ups, which are part of my journal every morning. Mm-hmm. But now I'm going to video them and get those one-ups out to the people who care to watch them. Yep. But it's that 1%. I got this from James Clear. James Clear talks a lot about 1%, 1%. Stop worrying about the 100. Because watch this scenario, and I tell the athletes this at sessions. You worry about the 100, you worry about the big number, but the small number is going to get you a greater number. So if you get 1% better each day, just 1%, mm-hmm. you've gotten 7% better each week. Mm-hmm. You've gotten 30% better each month. You've gotten 365% better each year.
Right.
Like stop worrying about the 100.
Right.
And the reason that I stuck with one up or went with one up was because I remember I'm a Nintendo guy, and I remember playing Super Mario Brothers, and when you got an extra man, it was called a one up, and you made that little it made that little noise. And so I'm going to use that sound until I get big enough where Nintendo makes me do something with copyright. I am going to use that tone to start off my one up. Bing, let's go one up. Let's go one up.
I saw something that you posted on Instagram. Listen, it's one of those things like Gary Vee talks about owning the New York Jets.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you listen to that, and there's you know what? If that sucker came up for sale, and there's not a doubt in my mind that he'd make a run at it and do it. And because I believe in it, and he deserves it. And everything you say that you're going to do or where you're going to be and all that, and the videos I've watched, I'm happy to be a part of this ride. I said earlier, I wrote something down right when we started, and it does, you just segue, I think, good to it. I wrote this down. It takes one thing, right? And as you started talking about cleaning an apartment in Atlanta and listening to Simon Sinek, that changed your path.
Yeah.
Right. And that just hit me. Like right as you said that, it hit me. And this is why. I'm convinced in everything you just said. And this is what is going to carry me through the rest of this day and inspire me the rest of the day. And I hope it does everybody else listen. It takes one message, one podcast, one YouTube video. It takes one lunch. It takes one thing to walk down your cubicle to somebody else's cubicle and talk to somebody. It takes one decision to accept a lunch or a meeting with somebody you don't know to really change your life, right? It takes that one miracle that we've talked about, like 3 or 4 amazing things are going to happen to me today. And it's me being open to accept it, to know that it's happening, to anticipate it and be available for that opportunity that is going to change my life. You're sitting around vacuuming an apartment, randomly listening to Simon Sinek, and now, 5, 7, 10 years later, you're sitting around having a great conversation with Evan Carmichael, which then could be like a great conversation with Simon Sinek, which could then be, hey, all of a sudden I'm sitting around prepping about what I'm going to talk about on the Tom Bilyeu show.
Yeah.
Right. That changed your life. And so I'm just so wrapped up, and you said it, it's the 1%, but it's really, it's in my mind, it's really just, it's the one. It's just one thing can impact and change your life. It could be, the homeless person on the street, and this is probably a bad analogy, but the one person that's homeless on the street where somebody just pulls up and says, hey, you know what? Come have lunch with me. Come have breakfast with me. Let me go feed you. And you go sit and have a conversation. And maybe that person has a skill, and that one person's life has changed, by one encounter. That inspired me with that you said, because, you don't know where that one conversation is going to go, that one encounter, that one returned email, that one lunch is going to change your life, or that one connection on any sort of social media platform where you're so hesitant to click send.
Yeah.
or to connect with that person or feel that you deserve that relationship or whatever it is, I think
the first thing Evan had us do, the very first thing Evan had us do was to write down, people have them in different ways, these big audacious goals. Like, what's your big audacious out of reach, this is crazy. When I say this to people, this is crazy. Like, for me to tell you that I'm going to be on the Tom Bilyeu show, to some people that means nothing. And to some people that's like, he's crazy. Like, why, he's never going to be on there, or why would he be on there? Literally in the moment, what I wrote down as my bold goal, and I said this to him because a couple people shared, and of course I'm not shy, so I was one of those people. I told him that my big audacious goal of that I had no idea how I was going to get there, when it was going to happen, was that he was going to do a top 10 on me.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And that, I love it. What was his response?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I love it, man. You don't know what you can get until you ask.
Yeah, let's do it, and I can't wait to do it. And so I'm front row. Like, this is the one thing that I wish I would have learned when I was a student sitting in classrooms and lecture halls, the importance of sitting in the front. Like, I sat right in the front, my legs extended. He would have tripped over my legs, had he moved. And so, Marky's got this, she's cool, but like, I was sitting in the front. I went to an event Thursday. This was on a Saturday. I went to an event. Actually, it was Friday, the Creative Mornings event that I'm speaking with in March. Sat in the front row. We're over at the Cowdy Roastery over off of in Tower Grove. Sat in the front row. And Leslie walked in a few minutes late, and she was like, I guess this is the punishment for coming late. You have to sit in the front row. I was like, yeah, no, I sat in the front row. But yeah, that was my goal. And bro, like, this story, we can touch on it again. We can talk offline, whatever it is. But this story goes so much deeper than that. Like I've had interactions with him since last Saturday. Like, he does not have a phone number. Like, he personally doesn't have a phone number, so he doesn't text, he doesn't call. It's all email or, some social platform. But we've had interactions of, I see you taking action, great job. I see the journey, great job. Hey, remember this while you're doing this, great job. So I asked him to, I know you said you reached out to him too about being on the podcast. Yep. I asked him to be a part of the Insecurities of Identity book. And not only did he say yes, but he actually gave me a better platform, a different platform than what I was thinking. So instead of me, how I described it to him was, excuse me sending out these questions to these people, to random people, how Tim Ferriss did Tribe of Mentors. He's like, yeah, that may work, but don't do it where you're having them write back or type back these emails. Have them do it in a video form. Because when they do it in a video form, you're going to be able to go deeper because they won't be constricted to the writing. And you're also going to have content that you'll be able to cut and use wherever you want to. Gotcha. So instead of saying, hey, George, will you answer these 4 or 5 questions? It's sending you a video saying, hey, George, through video, will you answer these 4 or 5 questions? Yeah. Now I've got my answers and I've got video of George.
Man, let me, man, I love it.
It only takes one. I know I went off. The power of one.
That's the power.
I told you recording that I was going to take
you sitting back and sitting there going, Evan Carmichael's coming. And to the point of, no, I'm going. I'm going to jump. This is how I live my life now. This is what I'm passionate about. Somebody I follow is in town, and I'm going to go listen. And it could have been you and 3 people. It could have been you and like 15,000 people. But you're going, and I'm going.
Or it could have been just me and me.
Yep. Right. And now all of a sudden, that changes your. Even if Evan winds up doing nothing for you, right? And I mean, like, does actionable things for you where you're interacting and all that. Yeah. He gave you things to change your life. Yeah. Whether that be, hey, do this in a video format. Like he fed you and inspired you to do something. I heard this morning from Evan Carmichael, and I thought of you when I heard it. And I'm interested in your response. Do you want to be famous?
I do not.
You do not want to be famous. So this is, and I thought the same thing. I was like, no, I don't want to be famous. I don't, we're doing this podcast so you and I can have a conversation, and you and I have this great connection and friendship. And that makes me feel good, but also I get to learn from you, and we get to take this, and hopefully somebody finds value in it that can better their lives and their community and their families and their job environment. I think that would be awesome. And I'm actually hearing back from people that were having that impact. So I'm emphasizing the word impact. So Evjen Carmichael's manager asked him the same question. Do you want to be famous? And Evjen kept saying, no, I don't want to be famous. I want to do this, this, and this, and kind of what you and I are doing and all that. But then his manager said this: you want to have an impact. Yeah. Are the people that are famous, do they have more of an impact, a bigger reach? Can they inspire more people? And then Evjen was like, yeah. And he was like, I'm sorry to say it this way. And this is him saying it in the video. I do want to be famous, and I don't apologize for it. The more famous I am, if I'm not like fed and like, if that's not my identity, like I'm sitting around like, hey, I'm famous and you should know me. And I don't have that sort of persona. But if I have this, hey, I want to be as famous as I can be, because then I can impact more people. Right. Sure. And I thought of you. I'm like, I bet you Jayson doesn't want to be famous, but he should be, because the message is so clear and so crisp, and it resonates and it inspires, and you have such a presence that I'm sitting around going, man, he's got to have that mindset. I've got to be famous because I can do more.
So this is where it gets super cool, because in our 3-on-1 we had on Sunday with Evjen, he touched on that story during the 3 hours on Saturday night. He told that exact story. And I, in a smaller setting, brought it back up Sunday. And I challenged that. I understand it completely. Yep. I understand what his manager's saying. Like, the more famous you are, the more that you're able to do what you want to do, which is inspire these entrepreneurs and get them on the path that they can do. My challenge in a smaller group was, when I answer that question, I'm answering it for right now. Martin Luther King Jr. did not aspire to be famous, but he's famous. Mm-hmm. Mother Teresa didn't aspire to be famous, but she's famous. Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, the Pope, whoever, like these people don't. And so when I answer that question, I understand that the more people that know me, the more people that I potentially get to impact. But just like money, that is not my driving force. It will be a byproduct of it.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
But that's not Jesus didn't want to be famous. Like nobody sought out to say. And I feel like those people that do seek that ends up being, maybe even sometimes unconsciously and involuntarily, I feel like that starts to become the why. Mm-hmm. And that's when you lose it. Like, the reason I am who I am is because I very honestly say, very humbly say, I'm just a little boy from Cleveland, Ohio. When I say that statement, that is my overarching theme of, I'm just a little boy from Cleveland, right? And that keeps me, because I know, the story. I didn't, grow up wondering where the next meal was going to come from, but we weren't affluent.
Right. Yeah. So I know you're on a hard stop today, and this is our Why Wednesday, and the why, it's all about the why. Yep. And this idea of, again, not to have a full episode of Evjen Carmichael, but he is very inspiring. Yeah. I mean, his thing every day. Let me read this list real quick. Play outside the rules. These were the 3 things from Evjen Carmichael, and you can see these Jayson said offline before we started about the things I post on my Instagram page. But if you go to Out from the Cube, my notes, I take snapshots of them early in the morning and post them. And you'll see these on my Instagram page. But playing outside the rules was kind of the theme for Evjen Carmichael. The first thing is just remind yourself daily of the mission that you're on, which is just reminding yourself of the why you're doing things, why you're taking the action you're taking, what's important to you, what your purpose is, all that. The second one I really liked, because this was my life in 2018 and the tail end of 2017, is limit the exposure, and I will add in there eliminate, but limit your exposure to negativity. That's just big in my world, right?
Yeah.
That is big. I know we only have so much time. There's a scene in Good Will Hunting, and most people have seen that movie. The Matt Damon role goes in to see the Robin Williams role for the very first time and he's a psychiatrist. Robin Williams is, and he goes in to give therapy or however you want to say it to Matt Damon's role, Will Hunting. And Will Hunting goes up to this picture on the wall, and it is a man in a boat, and the storms are just. The waves are huge, and it's a huge storm, and he's talking about this, and Will Hunting, that image is in my mind about, the storms that we're in, and some people are in storms, and some people like to create storms in our life, and I've always had this mindset of that image, that part of the movie of being in a storm, and nobody likes it. And I think Matt Damon essentially says to Robin Williams, it looks like this is a self-portrait. Right. Mm-hmm. And Robin Williams goes, well, what sucks is it was paint by colors or paint by numbers. Where my mindset is being in a boat with calm waters, right? And eliminating the storm, eliminating the negativity, eliminating the criticism, and getting those waters calm. And if anybody's on that boat with you, rocking the sides of it and creating the waves and creating the negativity, you got to ask them to find another boat. Right. Yeah. And that is just me. But the third one, and sorry to go off on a tangent there, but limit the negativity. The other one I really liked is just inject yourself with so much confidence and belief that you can do anything. Yeah. Right. So if we just did those things, right. And I loved it from Evjen. I really loved it. Just remind yourself your why, eliminate the negativity or the criticism or the people that don't believe in you. Because he says here, your mission is going to upset people. You have to be able to withstand the heat and the judgment.
Absolutely.
Right. And I thought that was big time. So, and then inject yourself with so much belief and self-confidence. And I am going to say this. So here's the homework. I don't know if you've done this yet, Jay, but I know you will like this. Here's the homework for you, for anybody listening, and for me. And I've already done the homework twice, and I'm going to do it for a third time. Go to Ed Milet's YouTube page. There is a hour-long video with Charlie Rocket. Charlie Rocket might be 25 to 28 years old. He spent 18 to 25, 26, 27, a 10-year range in the rap music industry. He is from Atlanta, Georgia. At one point, he was 310 pounds. And his story, I started watching this saying, hey, there's no way I'm going to make an hour long of this. I'll probably tap out at 5-10 minutes. I've watched the whole thing all the way through 2 times, and we'll do it a third time. That is one of the best stories I've heard about somebody taking action in their life, not letting anybody say they can't do anything, and taking massive action. This guy was 310 pounds, just made millions and millions of dollars off somebody called 2 Chainz. I don't know who 2 Chainz is. And you do. Okay. I don't. And he said, I quit. He looked at 2 Chainz and said, I quit. Yeah. 2 Chainz said, how are you going to make money? And he said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And then he followed it up and said, in 10 months, I will be doing an Ironman in New Zealand at 310 pounds. And 10 months later did it. And the whole story, it gives me, as we say, goosebumps just thinking about it, because I actually showed it to my mother, who's 68 years old, and said, it's consistency. It's not letting anybody say you can't do something. It's having a big vision. It's painting a picture for where you're going to be 10 months from now doing an Ironman. And it's modeling people.
George,
got me juiced up.
Why? No. This is what just before you press record, and I told you why I like Evjen, why I like Tom, is because they introduced me to people So I don't know Charlie Rocket, probably because it sounds like he was on the backside. He was the guy not in front of the camera. I do know 2 Chainz. I know him personally too. So 2 Chainz is really big, but he also used to play basketball, so I know him in the basketball world as well. But the thing, like, you would have never heard of Charlie Rocket had it not been for your intrigue of Ed Milet, correct?
Right. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
But all of a sudden, watching Charlie Rocket has now gotten you to this point to where, like, but what is it about Charlie Rocket that excites you?
Are you asking me?
I am asking you.
I'll say this because he says it in this, and I have said it on another podcast. This is the exact phrase, and I wrote it down and looked around to see if cameras were watching me because I've said this exact phrase in other podcasts. He says, "I am you." Now Charlie Rocket ends up being a Nike athlete.
Yep.
At 310 pounds. He's in the Colin Kaepernick commercial.
Yep.
He says, "I am you." And then he talks about how Jesus was us, how Oprah was us, how Jordan was us, how Steve Jobs was us, and how that inspires people.
Yeah.
Because he and we aspire to him. I got goosebumps now, and I haven't even seen it, because this is Ignite. This is Ignite. I am you is Ignite. So the reason that we look up to all of these people, the reason that we aspire and admire to all of these people is because they are us. The difference between them and us is they took action. That's it.
They stopped making excuses about finances. They stopped making excuses about their weight. They stopped making excuses about their predicament, and they took action. That is the difference. The difference is taking action. All of this stuff is inspiring and motivating and all of this stuff until you walk out the door. And it only remains inspiring and motivating if you continue to do it once you walk out the door. That's the only way.
Bam. We got to tap out on that, man. So listen, that's everybody's homework that listens to this. And the podcast is getting bigger, and everybody needs to either write it down or just remember Charlie Rocket. And just write in Charlie Rocket and Ed Milet into YouTube and spend that hour. And listen to this and start watching. I think Evan Carmichael's got a thing that he pushes out every day, kind of what is it? It's right in front of me.
Espresso.
Daily success routines, and it's espresso thing.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It's funny because he puts his little entrepreneur twist on it. So it's espresso, like entrepreneur, but espresso, which I thought was very clever.
And I'm interested on your take next week on the Charlie Rocket thing. I want to hit that with you because I really, and I'm going to watch it again for the 3rd time. I love it. It's that good.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, Jay, this is our Why Wednesday. This is going to be a reoccurring thing with Jay. We will have guests on Friday. We have Jay on Wednesday. You have me and my thoughts on Monday, and we're rolling with it. And great things are happening this year, not just for me, not just for Jay, but it is a mindset. Yeah. And it's one conversation, one returned email, one video post, one YouTube watch. Like, listen to Charlie Rocket and let that resonate in your mind and change how you think. Jay, I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week. I appreciate your story.
Yes, sir.
So much. I appreciate the example you give me, and I'm older than you, this old man, the example you give this old man on how to get out of my cube, out of my mental cube, and take action for the great things that are out there for me. I love it. I appreciate it so much. All right. Take care. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, bro.